There's a way to grow garlic that produces bulbs 3 times larger than anything you can buy in a store. It requires no synthetic fertilizer, it requires no pesticides, and it works in almost any soil. Commercial farmers know about it, but they don't use it. In fact, the modern agricultural system is designed to prevent you from using it. They sell you the wrong seed, they sell you the wrong tools, they teach you the wrong planting depth. Why? Because a garlic bulb that grows massive, stores for a year, and replants itself forever is a disaster for the grocery business. They need you to come back every week. They need your garlic to rot. They need you to be a consumer, not a producer. The agricultural industry spent the last century optimizing for shipping, not for size or flavor. They bred the resilience out of the plant. They turned a survival crop into a fragile commodity. But the biology of the plant hasn't changed. The potential for giant harvests is still locked inside every clove, waiting for the right signal. In this video, we are going to break down the 8 specific protocols that the industry abandoned. We are going to dig up the manual they tried to bury. These are the methods that turn a clove into a cannonball. Method number 1, the vernalization protocol. To understand why your garlic is small, you have to understand the concept of the winter clock. Garlic is biologically programmed by the Ice Age. It possesses an internal mechanism called vernalization. This is a survival trait. The plant requires a specific duration of intense cold, usually between 400 and 800 hours below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, to trigger the genetic switch that tells it to divide. Without this cold period, garlic will not form a bulb. It will simply grow as a single round onion known as a round. The lost method involves manipulating this clock with precision. Industrial farmers plant garlic in the spring or late fall and hope for the best. The master gardeners of the past didn't hope, they guaranteed. They practiced artificial vernalization. If they lived in a climate that wasn't cold enough, or if they wanted to supercharge the bulb formation, they would place their seed garlic in a cold cellar, or today, a refrigerator, for 6 to 8 weeks before planting. This mimicked the harshest winter, tricking the garlic's DNA into believing it had survived a deep freeze. When this pre-chilled garlic is put into the soil, it explodes with urgency. The plant thinks it has survived a long winter and rushes to reproduce, resulting in aggressive division and massive bulb formation. Modern agriculture skips this because it adds a step to the logistics chain. Storing tons of seed garlic in climate-controlled lockers is expensive. It is cheaper to plant it and accept smaller bulbs. But for the home grower, this manipulation of the biological clock is the difference between a mediocre harvest and a record-breaking one. They want you to believe that bulb size is just luck or variety. The truth is that bulb size is a response to thermal stress. By controlling the stress, you control the size. The industry sells you the wrong varieties for your climate zone to ensure you never see the full potential of the plant. By taking control of the vernalization process, you unlock the genetic potential that the supermarket garlic has bred out or ignored for the sake of speed and convenience. Method number 2, the deep planting depth. Open any modern gardening book, and it will tell you to plant your garlic cloves 2 inches deep. This is the standard advice. It is repeated on seed packets, in blogs, and by extension offices. And it is a lie designed for machines. Commercial garlic planters are designed to push a clove just below the surface. If they try to plant deeper, the machinery jams, fuel consumption goes up, and the speed of the operation slows down. Therefore, the standard depth became 2 inches, not because it is good for the plant, but because it is good for the tractor. The lost method is deep planting, 4 to 6 inches down. When you plant a clove this deep, you force the plant to develop a massive structural root system just to break the surface. This deep anchor does 3 things that are critical for giant bulbs. First, it places the root zone below the frost line, protecting the clove from the heaving effect of freeze-thaw cycles that can rip shallow roots apart. Second, it accesses moisture and minerals that are unavailable in the top 2 inches of soil, which dry out rapidly in the sun. Third, and most importantly, deep planting provides natural physical resistance. As the bulb expands deep underground, the pressure of the heavy soil compacts the skins, creating tight, dense, high-storage bulbs. Shallow garlic is loose and airy. Deep garlic is solid rock. The industry ignores this because deep planting makes mechanical harvesting difficult. You can't just pull deep garlic out. You have to dig it. It requires labor. By teaching you to plant shallow, they are teaching you to grow weak, vulnerable plants that require constant watering and attention. They have engineered a method that ensures the plant is always on the brink of failing, keeping you dependent on their irrigation and fertilizers. Deep planting restores the garlic to its natural state as a deep-rooted survivor. It allows the plant to tap into the geology of your garden, mining nutrients from the subsoil layers that shallow annual crops never touch. It is a return to the physics of stability. Method number 3, the phosphorus bone spike. Modern synthetic fertilizers are sold with a focus on nitrogen. Nitrogen is the fuel for green, leafy growth. It makes plants look lush and vibrant quickly. It provides immediate visual gratification for the gardener. But for garlic, nitrogen is a trap. If you flood garlic with nitrogen, it will produce massive, beautiful green leaves, but the bulb underneath will remain tiny. The plant spends all its energy on the foliage and forgets to store energy in the root. The fertilizer industry loves nitrogen because it is cheap to produce from natural gas, and it creates an addiction. The green growth demands more water, more care. The ancient method focused entirely on phosphorus and calcium. The old farmers didn't use blue crystals, they used bones. They understood that root development is driven by phosphorus. The bone spike technique involved burying crushed charred bones or bone meal directly under the clove at planting time. This created a concentrated depot of phosphorus, right where the roots would emerge. Unlike nitrogen, which washes away with the rain, phosphorus is immobile in the soil. It stays where you put it. By placing it directly under the seed, the roots grow into a nutrient bank. This signals the plant to prioritize structural integrity and bulb enlargement over leaf growth. It creates a stocky, thick-necked plant that is capable of pumping massive amounts of energy downward. The modern agricultural model broadcasts fertilizer over the surface of the entire field. This feeds the weeds as much as the crop. The targeted bone spike method feeds only the garlic. It is a surgical application of nutrition versus a carpet bombing. The industry buried this method because they cannot sell you a one-time application of bone meal for $5 when they can sell you a recurring subscription of liquid nitrogen for $50. They shifted the focus from the root, the harvest, to the leaf, the show. Reclaiming the use of phosphorus is reclaiming the understanding that the most important part of the plant is the part you cannot see. It is prioritizing the harvest over the aesthetic. Method number 4, the heavy mulch insulation. Industrial garlic fields are often bare dirt. They rely on herbicides to kill weeds. The soil is exposed to the wind, the sun, and the brutal cold of winter. This exposure stresses the garlic. A stressed plant goes into survival mode. It tries to flower and produce seeds quickly rather than swelling its bulb. The lost method is deep mulching. The old growers would cover their garlic beds with 6 to 8 inches of straw, leaves, or rotting hay immediately after planting. This mimics the forest floor. It creates a biological blanket. This insulation moderates the soil temperature. In the dead of winter, the soil under the mulch stays unfrozen longer, allowing the roots to continue growing. In the heat of spring, the soil stays cool and moist. But the real secret of the mulch is the carbon dioxide layer. As the bottom layer of the mulch decomposes, it releases CO2 directly at the soil surface. The garlic leaves emerging through the mulch are bathed in an enriched atmosphere of CO2, which supercharges photosynthesis. The deep mulch method restores the biological buffer. It allows the garlic to grow in a stress-free environment. A plant that is not stressed is a plant that puts all its energy into getting fat. Method number 5, the surgical scaping. Hardneck garlic varieties send up a flower stalk called a scape. To the plant, this flower is the future. It will pump 30% to 40% of its total energy reserves into producing that flower, stealing that energy directly from the bulb. The surgical scaping method is a precise intervention. The moment the scape begins to curl, forming a full circle, the grower snaps it off by hand. This sends a hormonal signal of failure. The plant realizes its attempt to reproduce sexually has failed. In response, it redirects 100% of its remaining energy into asexual reproduction, cloning itself by swelling the bulb. This redirection causes a massive surge in growth in the final weeks before harvest. By relearning the art of surgical scaping, you're essentially hacking the plant's hormones. You're forcing it to abandon its long-term plan and invest everything into your dinner. It is a manipulation of biological priorities that yields a 30% larger harvest for $0. Method number 6, the fungal inoculation. Modern agriculture treats soil as a sterile medium, a sponge to hold chemical water. They use fungicides to kill mushrooms and molds, believing them to be pathogens. This creates dead soil. In dead soil, garlic roots are limited to their physical length. They can only drink the water they can touch. The ancient method relied on the mycorrhizal internet. Old farmers would bring soil from the forest, specifically from under hardwood trees, and mix it into their garlic beds. They didn't know the word mycorrhizae, but they knew that forest soil had a spirit that helped plants grow. Today, we know that this forest soil introduced beneficial fungi. These fungi attach to the garlic roots and extend microscopic threads called hyphae miles into the surrounding soil. They effectively increase the root surface area by 1,000 times. These fungi dissolve rock to access minerals. They hunt for water in microscopic pores that roots are too fat to enter. In exchange, the garlic gives the fungi a little bit of sugar from photosynthesis. It is a trade deal. When you use chemical fertilizers, especially high phosphorus salts, you break this deal. The plant stops feeding the fungi because it is getting cheap food from the farmer. The fungal network dies. Then, when a drought hits or the fertilizer runs out, the plant is helpless. It has no support system. The industry buries the fungal method because they cannot patent a fungus that lives in the woods. They want you to be the sole provider for your plants. By inoculating your garlic with mycorrhizae, either from the forest or a packet, you're outsourcing the work of finding nutrients to a biological army that works for free. You're reconnecting the plant to the Earth's natural internet. Method number 7, the polyculture spacing. If you look at a commercial garlic field, it is a monoculture, row after row of identical plants, spaced perfectly for the wheels of a tractor. This density is efficient for machines, but it is a dinner bell for pests. The onion root maggot and the garlic rust fungus can move from plant to plant without obstruction. To combat this, farmers spray pesticides. The lost method is polyculture spacing. The old growers didn't plant garlic in blocks. They planted it in guilds. They spaced the garlic out and planted it alongside chamomile, savory, and lettuce. They understood that garlic is a social creature, but it needs specific neighbors. Chamomile, in particular, was known to improve the flavor and essential oil content of garlic. It acts as a tonic plant. The spacing prevented the spread of fungal diseases because the wind could move freely between the plants. The different root depths of the companion plants meant they weren't competing for the same nutrients. The industrial model demands efficiency of space over the health of the individual plant. They crowd the plants to maximize yield per acre, even if the individual bulbs are smaller and sicker. They accept a certain percentage of loss as the cost of doing business. The home gardener doesn't have to accept this. By giving the garlic room to breathe and surrounding it with beneficial allies, you eliminate the need for sprays. You create a confused olfactory landscape for pests. They can't find the garlic because the chamomile masks the scent. This method produces giant, healthy bulbs because each plant is treated as a king, not a unit of production. It rejects the factory floor aesthetic for the resilience of the meadow. All right, let's talk about the final secret to growing amazing garlic, and it's all in the harvest. We'll call this method number 8, the slow cure. Now, in the industrial system, garlic gets pulled, cut, and often blasted with heat in a kiln to rush it to the store. They need to get the water out super fast to stop mold during shipping. But here's the problem. This rapid dehydration kills the bulb. It freezes the biological processes, locking the flavor in a green, undeveloped state, and ruins its ability to be stored long term. The slow cure is the lost art of finishing your garlic. When you first dig it up, that plant isn't dead. It's packed with energy, sugar, and moisture, still stored in the leaves and stalk. The old-timers knew this. They would hang the entire plant, roots, dirt, leaves, everything, in a dark, airy shed for 4 to 6 weeks. During this time, the plant essentially cannibalizes itself. As the leaves dry out, they pump all their remaining energy down into the bulb. The bulb actually gets a little bigger and way denser after it's out of the ground. The flavors mature and become much more complex. The outer skins shrink down around the cloves, creating this perfect seal that lets the garlic last for a whole year without spoiling. Think about it. The grocery industry can't afford to hang garlic for 6 weeks. Space is money, time is money. So what do? You get green garlic that starts sprouting in your pantry after 2 weeks. You're buying a product that never got to finish its life cycle. By practicing the slow cure, you're honoring that final stage. You're letting it pack its bags for the long winter ahead. This patience pays off with a bulb that's rock hard, bursting with flavor, and basically immortal in storage. It's the difference between a product made for a quick sale and food crafted for survival. These methods we've talked about, vernalization, deep planting, bone spiking, heavy mulching, surgical scaping, fungal inoculation, polyculture, and slow curing, they aren't new tricks. This is the wisdom gathered over thousands of years of farming. This was just how it was done until the factory mindset took over the farm. The agricultural industry buried these methods because they don't fit the business model of selling you chemical inputs. These techniques rely on biology, not chemistry. They rely on patience, not speed. They rely on your intelligence as a gardener, not the instructions on a bottle. When you grow garlic this way, you're doing more than just growing food. You're participating in an act of resistance. You're proving that the old ways weren't primitive. They were incredibly sophisticated. You're proving you can outperform the industrial machine right in your own backyard. Those giant garlic bulbs from the past aren't a myth. They are a biological reality just waiting to be unlocked. The genetic potential is sleeping inside every single clove you plant. It's just waiting for you to stop treating it like a machine and start treating it like a living being that knows exactly what to do if you just give it the right signals. Stop buying the lies from the garden center. Stop accepting the mediocre stuff from the supermarket. Reclaim the knowledge. Plant deep, mulch heavy, and watch the earth respond. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe and hit the bell. We are uncovering the food system they tried to hide. The next vault opens soon.